Speaking of, and this interesting because, like, speaking of telling the truth, so we predicted that this would happen because you're running as a third party candidate. Even if you were running in the Democratic Party, they would do this too because Joe Biden, Democrat, sitting in the White House. So recently, you did respond to this on Twitter, but I want to get your response here for the audience as well. So obviously, ABC News, and it actually started with the Daily Beast. They put out a smear piece against you, saying that you owe $500,000 in taxes and in child support. And I just want to give you the opportunity to respond to this yourself.
Absolutely. I mean, one, it was, of course, the lie about the commitment to my children. You see, that to me is fighting words. That the depth of my love and commitment to my children has been a fundamental motivation in my life, and so that particular lie had to hit head on. And my precious daughter's mother's been the first one. She's called a number of the folk to tell them how big a lie that is. Now, I've always said that I'm broke as the Ten Commandments financially because money doesn't mean that much to me. That when I do get it, it usually flows rather quickly because I've got a number of different obligations, a number of different debts. And so in that sense, when we talk about the taxes, it's true, but I always have agreements in place so that I'm able to keep moving. And those agreements are very real. Those agreements are very concrete. Like 63% of my precious fellow citizens in the country, I live from paycheck to paycheck. Absolutely. I've been blessed. My paychecks are bigger. Ain't no doubt about that than most of my fellow citizens. But my debts are bigger too. No doubt about that too. So that in that regard, all they're trying to do is to kind of hit you below the belt with these ad hominem attacks. Somehow this is an attack on my character. No, I've always been broke, and I'll probably be broke the day I die. I put on my cemetery clothes every day. I'm coffin ready every day. I know if I'm telling the truth about a hated people, of black people, black love is a crime in a white supremacist world. I know that. I'm just willing to bear that cost and that cross. Not because I'm so good. This ain't no vanity project. He's narcissist. He's concerned. No, not at all. I find great joy in telling the truth that focuses on the least of these, because I come out of Shiloh Baptist Church, and I come out of being shaped by the Black Panther Party, and I come out of a conception of moral and spiritual greatness that sits at the core of who Fannie Lou Hamer was and Martin Luther King Jr. was. That's my standards. That's like playing the saxophone, and Charlie Parker and Coltrane are the standards, or trying to sing a song, and Aretha Franklin and Mahalia Jackson are the standards. That vision of greatness fundamentally informs my own sense of calling. It's true in the classroom. It's true when I go to jail. It's true when I'm on the streets. It's true when I go to church, and I'm a hang loose Baptist, so it's true when I'm in the nightclub doing my thing.
I think what some people may not, what some people may assume. Some people may assume because they see you on TV, because you're a professor, you're an author. I think that some people may assume, well, Cornel West is probably making a lot of money, so why is it that he would still owe taxes or child support, etc. What I tried to explain to people the other day is that just because you have a balance doesn't mean you don't have some type of payment arrangement or whatever in place, especially when it comes to taxes, because I know a lot of people have like a payment arrangement in place. But also, that being said, I think it's important for people to understand that it is not uncommon when you are coming from particularly the Black community, and let's say you are the first one in the family to, I know this from experience, if you're the first one in the family to go to college, get the college education, and to get like that professional career, it is not uncommon that you then in turn will try to help out other people, whether it's in your family or in the community as well. In other words, like, you're going to pay it forward. So for me, for example, my aunt helped me out. She was the first to go to college. I was the first to actually finish. And then I helped my sister. Yeah. So I think this is something that a lot of people may not understand, especially if you're coming from families where you don't have like that generational wealth, or you don't have legacy in your family at some of these colleges, especially when you're the first to go. Everybody kind of looking at you. And then, of course, you want to help people as well. So what I want people to understand is just because you may be making a lot more than some of us, that still doesn't mean that you don't have debts that you have to tend to as well. But I feel like this smear that they have actually put towards you, if you weren't running as a third party candidate, or if you weren't running the president at all, nobody was trying to look up this information. So they did this to Matt Taibbi. Matt Taibbi was just here recently, and the IRS came to his house. So I was asking him about that as well.
No, it's very real. It's very real. And I do believe that all of us ought to pay our fair share of taxes, and especially the top 1%, because most of them pay very, very little. Some of them don't pay anything at all. But back to your point, I have to acknowledge that. I mean, the fees and liabilities when you get behind does push you into a pit. That's very real. And I must say that, I did have waves of audits, and I always wondered, what was going on. I got a call. I got a knock on my door Christmas Eve with a subpoena to pay my taxes right before Santa Claus gonna show up the next morning. I'm thinking, like, how come you all can't wait until after the holiday is over? Why? Well, it was just sense that we keeping track of you. Okay, I understand it. And they've been kind enough to be open to the agreements, and I've followed through the agreements the best that I can, and therefore I continue in the process of paying my taxes like every citizen should, or at least so chooses. I mean, you got some Quakers and others that might not want to pay their taxes because too much going to war. Well, I understand that argument, but generally speaking, for me, I'm committed to paying. But I do recognize that anybody, Brother Matt or anybody else, it could be, a number of voices out there speaking the truth, that there is a certain kind of folk keeping track of what you're saying and what's going on that you can't be naive about. You don't know exactly for sure, but you can't be naive about it. But most importantly, you can't be preoccupied with that. You got to focus on the strength that you have. And I come from a biblical tradition. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these other things will be added to you, which is to say, as long as you're true to your calling, somehow you will be able to keep going and gain access to resources, even if you broke the 10 Commandments every month, every year. And that's been true for me for 50 years now, you see. 50 years.
I think one of the questions that did come my way in reference to the child support is, I think some people may have wondered if your children are adults now. Some people are asking.
Yes. Absolutely.
Some people are asking, like, why do you even how could you have to pay child support if your kids are adults?
Well, that's why it's a lie. That case was closed a long time ago. And not only that, but, I am of the disposition that I do far beyond what is required for my children. That's just what it is to be a West. You know what I mean? That's what it is to be shaped by my family and so forth. So that's why that was probably the most troubling and disturbing aspect of the lies. But, Sister Sabby, more lies ought to come. There's no doubt about it. You got to fortify yourself. You got to be armed. You got to put on the full armor, as Ephesians 6 says. And most importantly, you can't be discouraged. You can't. They're trying to somehow steal some of your fire, and they're trying to somehow lessen some of your commitment. Whereas for me, it's the opposite. Gives me more fire, gives me more background, gives me more willingness to speak the truth. But it also, I begin to see in a very concrete way, in a personal manner, just how rotten the system is. That they're really not concerned about what I'm pointing to. I'm pointing to mass incarceration, and the brothers and sisters disproportionately black and brown there. I'm pointing to the hoods and the ghettos and the reservations. I'm pointing to working people who are being pushed against the wall. That's what I'm pointing to. With the discourse about these particular taxes and so forth, take us away from that. And I do believe that's why I addressed it and so forth. But you can imagine, you see, the Democratic Party, the last thing they want is to be measured by the degree to which they have delivered for poor people, delivered for working people, delivered for those folk in various parts of the world who are subjugated by U.S. imperial policies from the vantage point of Palestinians or anybody else. And I myself am committed to never, ever selling any oppressed people down the river. I don't care what color, I don't care what gender, I don't care what nation, and so forth. It could be Dalits in India, it could be Roma in Europe, it could be Jews in Russia, it could be Palestinians on the West Bank, it could be black folk in Harlem, it could be poor white in Appalachia, it could be Spanish speaking in East Los Angeles, it could be Asians in Minneapolis. That's what it is to try to be a love warrior and a freedom fighter. That's what Martin was about. That's what Malcolm was about. That's what Fannie Lou was about and Ella Baker was about. We'll never reach their level of greatness. We know what the standards are. And so we look at ourselves through the lens of those standards. And they're beautiful standards. Vito Marcantonio, the great Italian brother who was a lawyer for W.B. Du Bois, is one of the greatest freedom fighters of the 20th century. Well, he's tied to Italy. You ain't lying. Because the Italians got some serious brothers and sisters tied to truth-telling and justice-seeking. So is true with the Irish. So is true with the English. So is true with the Belgian Congo brothers. So is true with the South Africans. So is true with the Lithuanians, the Ethiopians, the Guatemalans, the Mexicans. It is a human thing, but the sad thing is most of human history is the history of hatred and greed and domination and subjugation. So we're trying to create those moments of interruption. And that's what love does. That's what justice does. And democratic experiments, when poor people and working people have self-determination, that creates new possibilities vis-a-vis domination, subjugation, exploitation. But we know, unfortunately, very sadly, that the powers that be, they're mighty. They're not almighty, but they're mighty. And they try to crush folk. So when people say, "Oh, Brother West, you're a threat," I hear Brother Carvel and hear Brother Axelrod and Sister John Wash and others. "Oh, you a threat to our status quo." I say, you don't say. That's a wonderful thing. That's one of the things I'm trying to do. Not because the focus is on me, because you're crushing people. Because people are not able to live lives of dignity. I'm just pointing that out. I'm just a vessel. I'm just a vehicle. I'm just a conduit of a great tradition of a great people. That's all.
That's right. So, I totally get where you're coming from, but, I got to ask.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. And I appreciate you, because that's part of your integrity as a critical thinker, as well as a lover of Black people, oppressed people, struggling folk, trying to live lives of dignity. So we appreciate what you do, Sister Sabby.